Let's go over my thoughts and ratings of the 9 books I read in the 26th week of 2026. Missing in Soho by Holly Stars is the second book in the Misty Divine series. This is a cozy mystery that follows a drag queen named Misty Divine who is going to help out a PI named Sylvester solve the disappearance of a local photographer in Soho, London. But when Sylvester narrowly escapes with his life after an attack, it is up to Misty Divine to take on the investigation herself. Misty Divine is the best character. I fell in love with her in book 1, and this book only grew my love for her further. While this story covers heavy themes of oppression, bigotry, and mental health, it is also full of fabulous glam, friendship, self-acceptance, pride, humor, and so much love, which makes for a very emotional and heartfelt, yet very entertaining and hilarious reading experience. I loved this. I absolutely flew through it. It kept me engaged, it kept me guessing, and I can't wait to keep up with this series as it comes out. I rated Missing in Soho by Holly Stars 4.25 stars. I then did a segment of Best or Worst Thriller Books reading vlog where I read The Half-Sister by Sandy Jones and rated it 4 stars, and I also read Her Perfect Twin by Sarah Bonner and I rated it 4.5 stars. If you're interested in my thoughts on either of these books, you can watch that reading vlog. The Paleontologist by Luke Dumas is a paranormal horror thriller that follows the curator of paleontology, Dr. Simon Neely, as he takes a job at a museum that his sister vanished from many years ago. He's hoping that taking a job at this museum will give him the answers to his sister's disappearance. But when he arrives, he finds more than he ever expected. Throughout this story, we follow Simon as he juggles the financial ruin that this museum is under, new prehistoric discoveries, and strange occurrences that couldn't be caused by any living creature. This was absolutely, utterly gripping and charming. From the very beginning, this gripped me, and the tone of the story really radiates through Dumas's prose and storytelling. I felt totally immersed by the world of this crippling museum and thought it was so full of mysterious intrigue. The first book that I read by this author was Nothing Tastes as Good, and I absolutely loved it, but what stuck out to me in that book is the same thing that stuck out to me in this book, and that is the MC's internal monologue. I just think that Luke Dumas knows how to write vulnerable characters very well. It was so easy to empathize with Simon. He felt like a real, raw, emotional character, and being inside of his mind was a very riveting journey. I just thought he was expertly crafted. This is definitely more of a slow burn, which is something that I really appreciate. I just really enjoy sitting in the uncomfortableness of a situation and feeling that slow creeping dread as you read through the story. Now, while this is a slow burn, I will say that climax was absolutely unhinged, and I loved every minute of it. I honestly thought this book was almost perfect. I have 2 little mini qualms. The first one is an ick that I won't even say for the sake of the algorithm. I don't want it to think that I enjoy this thing, so I'll put it in my Goodreads review if you're interested in knowing. And the other is that I felt like the ending was a little bit too drawn out. I know that there were a lot of moving parts in this story that needed to be wrapped up, but I don't know, after the climax, I just thought the ending was just a little bit too long. Other than those 2 tiny little things though, I really loved this book and I rated it 4.5 stars. She Dies in the End by Elmar is a mystery thriller that publishes on October 20th and will be available on Kindle Unlimited. This follows a body broker named Penny. If you don't know what a body broker is, neither did I, but it is somebody who commercially trades cadavers, hopefully for research purposes, but sometimes not. So we're following Penny, and one day she is transporting a cadaver when she comes across an unaccounted for body, the body of her ex-boyfriend, Caesar. It quickly becomes clear that something very twisted is going on and that Penny is being blackmailed. This is a cat and mouse style thriller, and it also has one of my favorite kinds of tropes, which is when a character has to confront their own dark past in order to solve a mystery that is happening in present day. The psychological torment that Penny goes through having to confront what happened all those years ago was handled in such an intriguing way, and it really gripped me. I thought the premise of this was so interesting. I had never heard of a body broker before, and I thought it was really interesting learning about this profession in a thriller setting. This was dark and twisty, and it kept me guessing. Now, I will say there is a smidge of that rich people behaving badly type of trope in it because of who Penny's ex-boyfriend is. He's a pretty wealthy elite guy in the medical field, so we get a little bit of that money-hungry vibe throughout that I just don't care for. Because I'm such a fast reader, I can kind of look past things that maybe other people don't. And I will say this book does have a little bit of a repetitive nature to it, and I think that if you're somebody who doesn't just blaze through a story, it might bother you, but honestly, it wasn't that big of a deal breaker to me. Overall, this was an enjoyable reading experience, and I rated it 3.75 stars. Wisdom Corner by David Heska Wanobly Wyden is an indigenous crime thriller that publishes on July 7th. This follows Virgil Wounded Horse, and he is a retired vigilante who is forced back to the job when a prominent figure from his reservation is killed. This follows the same main character from this author's first book, Winter Counts, which I haven't read yet, but have been meaning to. So if you've read that book, let me know what you thought. This felt like an indigenous version of an S.A. Cosby book. Deeply flawed characters full of heart and grit, a very engaging plotline, unexpected twists and turns, and political intrigue. Now, I'm not typically into political thrillers, but there's something about tribal politics and small town politics that just works for me more often than not. I just definitely prefer personal vendettas, but I feel like this book did a really good job of balancing those two things. I love Indigenous thrillers. I love hearing about cultures that are different than my own. I love murder mystery, and so I was intrigued by the premise of this story right away. I was interested in figuring out the who and why of it all, but what really kept me engaged was Virgil Wounded Horse. This character is so headstrong, and he was very easy to root for. I really appreciated the important themes of Indigenous culture, strong sense of community, defending and protecting loved ones, and the commentary on the dangers of colonialism. I rated Wisdom Corner 4 stars. The Season of Sinking by Daphne Wollstonecraft is a mystery thriller that publishes on July 7th. This follows a woman named Imogen and her twin sister Amelia, who return to their small lakeside town after their mother's suspicious passing. So throughout the story, we're trying to get to the bottom of this woman's passing, and then there's also a second mystery going on, the disappearance of a local girl from a year prior. While we do follow both of the sisters in this story, we're mainly focusing on Imogen. She is really the driving force of this entire story. She is absolutely convinced that something nefarious was going on, and she wants to get to the bottom of it, so she teams up with an old crush of hers, a guy named Rory, and they get entangled in this romantic connection as they are solving the mystery of Imogen's mother's passing. With themes of familial secrets, fractured relationship, betrayal, deception, this is a small town mystery where everyone's a suspect. As a Pacific Northwest born girl, I really appreciated the Pacific Northwest setting. I felt so immersed and just thrown into this atmospheric vibe immediately. I really felt the nostalgia that Imogen was feeling throughout the story, and the reminiscing of summers on the lake. It just really took me back. I had a good time reading this. It was full of drama. There were little twists and turns that really kept me engaged, and I thought the characters were developed enough for me to care about them. I will say I found the ending a bit ridiculous. Just a little bit too over the top, but ultimately I did have a good time reading this despite its ending. I originally rated this book like 3.75 to 4 stars, but upon further reflection, I think I'm gonna go with 3.5 stars. I sometimes change my ratings of books, so if you're ever looking for the most updated rating that I have, check my Goodreads, it's linked in my bio. Marla by Jonathan Janz is a horror book that publishes on August 18th. It follows the investigation of murders in this small town called Kings Branch, and this mysterious woman named Marla. This is in part an investigative mystery, and in part a story of a mystical woman named Marla who lives in this gothic house with her mother. Detective Carl Lancaster is convinced that Marla has something to do with these murders, even though she was nowhere near the scene. Throughout the story, we follow a cast of characters that have their unique connections to Marla. This grabbed my interest immediately. The immersive nature of the atmosphere in the story was just inescapable. It's eerie, unsettling, spooky. This is the perfect Halloween read, and I'm honestly kind of sad that I read it in summer. This was genuinely, utterly amazing. The characters were so real to me, they were so well fleshed out, and I honestly felt a connection to every single one of them in some way. Marla herself was absolutely intoxicating to me. I just wanted to know everything about her. The plotline, it had me on the edge of my seat. And the prose, it just oozed these ominous vibes. This was sharp, creepy, full of dread, and I honestly just loved every minute of it. Now call me petty, but this did have an ick that I just can't ignore. Same one as in The Paleontologist. Further details on my Goodreads if you're interested. Other than that though, honestly, this was perfect and I loved it so very much. I rated it 4.75 stars. Lastly, I read Homesick by Rhiannon Grist. This publishes on July 14th, and I'm going to post an entirely separate review for this book. It was absolutely flawless, perfect, no notes whatsoever. I'm obsessed with it and I'm still recovering. I finished it last night. So stay tuned for my thoughts, but this is 5 stars. Thank you so much for watching. Now please leave me a comment and let me know your favorite book that you read last week.